Hey everyone, welcome to the Underswell. I'm Derek Sabori. Thanks for being here. We're live on the show. Karimah, welcome to the Underswell podcast radio show with me.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
I'm excited to have you. We've got a lot to talk about because we kind of cross over in the same field of work. I feel like you're so deep in it. You've been doing this work for so long. Sustainability, purpose-driven work, responsible supply chains, etc. I mean, there's a lot you've been doing, but that's sort of your jam, right?
It is my jam. I feel like I was born into this. I think generationally, my family was always working on fighting inequality and injustice. We were born to deep privilege. I come from a business family in India. For the first 10 years of my life, I lived in a house that my great-grandparents built, and I had a lot of identity. And I was known, I had everything that I wanted, and was taught that all the inequality that we saw around us was not okay. And that has basically guided my life and my purpose to figure out how we can all live a life and be in a world where we can all flourish together with each other and with nature.
Yeah, that feels like an early age to identify that and see that and stick with it and persevere and kind of keep your eye on that North Star. But you've done it. Do you give credit to your parents for that, or did they kind of set the stage and you just took it and ran with it?
I think I give the credit to all my family, right? So grandmothers were known to treat their housekeepers like family, and both housekeepers had a patina of not having had husbands in the picture, and they raised the children of these housekeepers like they were their own. And so I think generationally we've known that how you treat people with the feeling of our shared humanity is different from how the rest of the world treats them. But how you treat them is truly like they're your fellow human beings and they're your family. And so I would say ancestrally, as well as, my parents, they did a lot of social work. They took us everywhere. They were politically involved. They were business people, both of them, and they are still business people, both of them. But truly everything that we've done in our family has been geared towards creating a positive impact for the world. And we're also part of a community that truly is centered on creating a positive impact.
Wow. Well, we've got a lot to unpack, so we'll dive into all that. I want to kind of hear the story of how you got to where you're at today, and I'm sure it's going to include a lot of what you just touched on. But let's start with some small talk, I guess. Just it's Friday, the weekend's coming up. You got any good plans for the weekend?
So the three things that I do for fun are food, love food.
Okay.
Friends and foreign travel. So this weekend actually is going to be a low-key weekend. I was in Abu Dhabi last week and through the weekend at the IUCN World Conservation Congress, and it filled me up. I always say, when you live a life of purpose, you never work a day in your life. And my husband both live a life of purpose. It was great to be in Abu Dhabi with 10,000 fellow conservationists, listening to and learning from Indigenous elders, reconnecting with friends old and new, talking about how we advance conservation, met family as well while I was there. My niece is based in the Emirates. So I'm really full, and my body's telling me I need rest this weekend. But generally, it's about food, friends, and foreign travel.
Well, so you did the foreign travel. You got your friends. What's a favorite food? Because you're out in DC. You're in DC. You're on the East Coast. You're in the DC area. What's your favorite food out there?
I love street food of all kinds. So, which DC proper doesn't have great ethnic food, but in the suburbs there is, and wherever I'm in the world, I go seek street food, and I got some really good stuff out in the Emirates last weekend, so I'm full. I'm good.
Had you been there to the Emirates, to Abu Dhabi?
Yeah.
Before? You had? Okay. Jeez, it's I hear everybody's speaking about it now. It seems like everybody's going over there and doing things. Give us a quick little snapshot of what it's like.
So, I mean, I had a very tiny snapshot. I went and had dinner with my niece, and it was amazing. But I think I was in this bubble of the IUCN World Conservation Congress in Abu Dhabi National Exhibition Center, and I think what was really incredible was how much energy and how much emphasis there is across all the governments, whether it's from UAE, whether it's the other Gulf countries, whether it's the rest of the world, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of focus and concern around conservation. And it was just being in that energy, soaking that energy. I met a Hawaiian indigenous elder named Uncle Saul, and I just hugged him because he led us through a prayer for Mother Earth and reminded us what this was all about. So I think I didn't see much of the Emirates this week, but I did see a lot of wonderful humans from the Emirates and other parts of the world who were really focused on conservation. And that for me.
Well, I want to, again, like I said, we'll get into some of the details here, but I will just introduce you and say I'm here today with Karimah Hudda, founder and chief catalyst at IllumineEarth, a purpose-driven company founded on the premise that human ingenuity and intent has the potential to solve our existential challenges within our lifetime, was what you were out in the gathering there for trying to solve. You're a transformative leadership expert and systems change catalyst with deep roots in global sustainability and enterprise leadership. So we've got a lot we can talk about. You mentioned that you've always done kind of purpose-driven work. For those that don't really know, or they're like, what does that mean? Tell us a little bit. What do you mean by purpose-driven work?
I think we're all born to purpose. I think we're trained out of it, right? We're trained to go to school and learn and go to the world of work, and we conform and we find a nice job, and we think our purpose is to have a nice job, raise a family, earn money, retire, whatever. But there is a higher purpose we're all born to. And I believe that our previous generations knew it when we lived in smaller communities, when we lived in small towns and villages. And that was, in a very basic sense, to be neighborly, right? You know, if there was a bereavement, or if there was want or hunger, or if somebody needed care, the community provided. The community lived seasonally, and we all knew that we were dependent on the vegetable garden, and we knew that we were dependent on weather patterns. And so I truly believe that we're all born to this common human purpose to coexist in harmony with each other and with nature. And most of us who actually work on figuring out our purpose have some element of this in our lives. And that guides us to figuring out how, like, everything we do. For me, even the person I chose to marry, the life I lead, where I put my money, what I do with my work is all focused on making a positive impact to people and planet.
So it's intentional and sort of there's kind of a bigger picture to all those micro decisions. They all kind of lead to something bigger then, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Karimah, for the last 20 plus years, you've been revolutionizing businesses and communities across 40 different countries. You've worked with a wide range of organizations, from coffee farms in Sumatra to Fortune 500 C-suites. You've built a reputation for an ability to really elevate leaders and cultivate visionary leadership in these globally diverse contexts, catalyzing significant impact in the environment, human rights, and livelihoods of people all over the world. Ultimately, I think your goal has been to really transform these organizations, create lasting positive impact like you just touched on. I do want to know, though, can you give us sort of a quick pulse check on how that type of work, the work that you do, the work that we do, how's it all going? Because there are some people that are like, God, I actually had a conversation with somebody yesterday that said, hey, businesses and corporations are starting to go, oh, great. There's not as much pressure on us to do the right thing or to take care of, environment and people, or at least outwardly. So from your perspective, how's it all going?
I think we're in a very strange moment right now.
Yeah.
One of the things that I always laugh about, but it was actually real and it made a difference, is I took a lot of business leaders to farms and forests. And it was transformative. Some of these business leaders became chief sustainability officers. We had a business president in one of my companies who went and got her certificate in sustainability from Cambridge.
After doing those visits.
Yeah. And, I did nothing besides hold space for these people to go see for themselves. Because once you go see, you cannot unsee. You cannot unsee the forest. You cannot uncare about it. You cannot uncare about the people that are there. And so I do believe that we as human beings do know at that core, right? Our neighborliness, our dependence on nature. We do this in our private lives. We do care. And what sometimes happens when life gets in the way, when pressures are real, right? We need to pay mortgages and rents and healthcare and housing and education. And we tend to kind of compartmentalize ourselves away. And we have this point of dissonance where we say, okay, well, this is what I do at work, and then I go do charity outside. Mm-hmm. I think the best thing is when people realize that there isn't a trade-off. I think right now there's just so much coming at both business leaders and impact leaders that it feels like we're this moment where it is difficult, but I think that's calls on us to do even more, to come together at a very human level, to go back to nature. And this is actually a lot of work that I do with corporate leaders and their teams. I try to insist that even when I do team building, that we go to nature, because it kind of resets us in a really very different way. But it is difficult. But I want to say to everybody that it is much more important that we take care of ourselves and we refocus on this purpose, with the hope that we will get back on track to what we need to do. Mm. And by the way, because I was at IUCN, I can tell you there's a lot of really good work to be done. And because I was there, I can tell you that if you're in a company where you're struggling with some of your nature work, there's a lot of really good resources and partnerships out there that won't cost you the earth. So, there's hope and there's light for you as well.
Karimah, I want to ask you, you've mentioned your time at the IUCN. Do you feel like, you've been doing this for a lot of years. Do you feel that when you go there, are you hearing the same thing? Does it ever feel like this is the same, story that I heard 15, 20 years ago? Or do you really feel like there's good progress being made and it's new and it's exciting and new people are coming into it and there's a fresh energy? Or do you ever get a sense of like, why are we, I say this because I've had this experience where I'm like, we're saying the same exact thing that we said 15, 20 years ago, and why are we not doing more? How do you feel?
Yeah, and I've seen that a lot in a lot of the mainstream conferences here. I think last week didn't feel a lot like that. It felt like we were progressing everything from bankers thinking of creative financial instruments, because, one is mindset and the other is money. Right? We know what the problems are. We know how to solve them, but we need to make sure that we focus our mindset on solving them and then put the money where it's needed. And so I think the people that I chose to engage with, right, young people who are proving that they can do conservation better, cheaper, faster than mainstream programs. You've got governments that you would never imagine, right? We all live in the US. We all focus on what we know here, but then you go outside and there are governments from all over the world that are actually moving forward. Is it fast enough? Absolutely not, right? Mm-hmm. We need to go faster. We need to go much, much faster to hit our nature and climate goals. But there was fresh energy, there was fresh momentum. And I think we need to tank that, right? I think we need to imbibe that. We need to find those moments where we can come together. We need to go to these places and not just come back imbibed, full of energy and inspiration, but we need to then find the courage within us to move. And I think it's a moment of collective courage that we need to find. So I didn't feel a lot of repetition last week, but it did feel like, now what?
Now what? Well, it's interesting that you brought up the finance part, right? I think a lot of now what is like, go get the money, right? Get the money in here so we can do this work, right? Because that's a lot of times where we get stuck, is just cut budgets, cut resources, things slow down. So that's good that the finance people were there.
Yeah. And also, we're finding money to invest in AI, right? Because we think it's urgent. Mm-hmm. Well, climate and nature are urgent too. So let's find the money for that.
Yeah. Well, you speak to this from experience. You've got a great resume, right? University of Washington, Oxford, Dartmouth, Fairtrade, Mondelez, to Nike, now to your own consultancy. So, you come at this as an angle of having been there, like you said, being at the farms, being in supply chains. That's a really holistic way of looking at it. How has all of, this is maybe too big of a question to ask, but how has all of that informed how you approach your purpose-driven work today? All of those different experiences, can you kind of package them all up and what have you learned?
Oh my goodness. I think I want to recognize every single human who has taught me along the way. Right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, perfect.
To move from, Oxford took a risk on me because I was a science major, even though I studied in the US and you have a very holistic education in the US. I had a lot of social science, but it was the only non-social scientist in my grad program. And I learned and I passed, but I surely did not get the same grades as I did in my science undergrad because I was pivoting. But they were patient enough to teach me. And then similarly, Fairtrade, we just learned by doing. We made a lot of mistakes, but we just grew the movement fast. We turned the movement over to the rightful owners, which is the farmers and farm workers. And we had a great time growing the movement. But I, again, had a lot of mentors, right? Who I didn't know how to sit in front of a very large corporation and represent Fairtrade, but I still have those mentors in my mind and heart who taught me how to do that. When I pivoted from Fairtrade into corporate, I had the best mentors and the best bosses who were still great friends and who just taught me, and they learned from me, but they also taught me how to navigate this new country, this new universe that I was inhabiting. So I would just say, be open to learning, and you can learn anything.
Yeah. I love the fact that you pointed out just the humans along the way and how much of a role they played. Sometimes I think we can forget to give credit to each other for that. So I love that you did that. Let's maybe rewind, because we touched on a lot of things just in that brief little interaction right there. Can you rewind and kind of walk us through kind of the how you got here story? And actually, before that, tell us a little bit about just the work that you do, though. Actually, let's start there. You tell us the work you do. What does kind of a day in the life look like at IllumineEarth? How are you working with leaders? How are you changing businesses and minds? Give us a little snapshot.
Yeah, so the programs work that I do is three things. One is I work one-on-one with leaders as their personal strategic advisor for where they want to go next in their personal flourishing, increasing their influence and their impact. Okay. And then I work with them and their teams on strengthening the team's influence and impact and flourishing. And then I have a community of the leaders, the different types of leaders I work with, whether it's business leaders, future generations leaders, impact company CEOs, and systems change catalysts. So a lot of my work is focused on serving these leaders, making sure that I'm spending my time with the right tools, with the right strategy, with one-on-one engagement, making sure they get what they need, making sure that I'm keeping abreast of what's going on in industry and the world so that they're equipped, because leaders today do not have the time to cover all of this work. So really doing the inner work to recenter them on personal flourishing, on becoming bigger, thinking bigger, and then really strategically being able to elevate themselves as enterprise leaders and industry leaders, showing up in industry, sharing their point of view, being able to move forward and influence others, and to create the connections and the networks that they need for their lifelong growth and their lifelong career path. Part of my model is I do this work with Gen X and Gen Y corporate leaders, but I give back to Gen Z leaders. So I provide some pro bono support, mentoring, connection building to Gen Z leaders. And I learn a lot from them too. So one is just my community, fostering that, gardening it, making sure there's engagement, doing the client work. The second piece is creating and imagining, right? So learning, continuing to deepen my learning about how we learn, how we lead, how we flourish. What is the philosophy and the science around it? What is what is leadership about? What is humanity and nature about? So really creating my learning journey, as well as using that to create my thought, my writing, my keynotes and my work. And the third piece is really connecting. So making sure I go to these congresses, making sure I'll be at Trellis Impact in a couple of weeks, making sure that I stay in community with the people that matter in this industry, and making sure that I'm continuing to learn.
Yeah. When you say industry, are you working kind of across any industry, or is there one particular that you like to work with, or it could be anybody from anywhere?
All businesses. I work with all businesses. The only focus is that they have to have some element of impact in them, whether they're a large corporation with an impact commitment or an impact company CEO that's actually moving the needle, or a system change catalyst that is bringing together multiple stakeholders for people or planet.
And I like that you're using the word flourish. I think often you'll hear abundance, or just sort of, you don't often hear flourish. Tell me why what's your vision for this idea of flourishing?
First of all, it's not a new vision, right? It goes back to what I said at the beginning of our conversation. This is what all of humanity has aspired to across time and culture. So whether you think about the African concept of Ubuntu, if you think about Aristotle's concept of eudaimonia, this is all associated with flourishing. If you look at indigenous communities, they're all associated with flourishing. The difference is that there are different components of flourishing that people focus on. It's either, man over nature, individuals versus the collective. Ubuntu is all about the collective. Indigenous philosophies are all about man as part of nature and coexisting with nature. If you just put all these together holistically, the concept of flourishing that I imbibe and that I teach is really around individuals, humanity, and nature coexisting in equilibrium. Because that's when we can coexist together in a way that fills us up forever for generations to come.
Yeah, kind of the idea of filling up, making better, improving, always, right?
Or as one of the Oxford philosophers that I spoke with this past summer said, a good life. What is your
good life?
Good life? A good life isn't one where you have nobody to communicate with, or you're doing well but everybody else is poor and starving, or there's no nature to enjoy or to give you your resources. A good life is when everybody around you is filling you up. When nature is around you is filling you up, and that doesn't happen if we don't hold it in equilibrium.
Yeah, no, I like that. All right. Well, let's look at, I mentioned earlier, just your resume. It's quite impressive, like I said. And I started this show because I really love hearing about people's journeys, how they got here. I'm always fascinated sort of behind the stories behind it and the struggles and the lessons learned. I'm interested to know how you got into this type of work, where it all started. You said with your parents, but if I look back, you already mentioned that your earliest days in college were spent in microbiology. So how does all this lead to executive training? Let's unwind a little bit, go back and walk us through it. What's the journey been like?
So the medicine comes from also an intention to have a positive impact. I always thought if I was going to be a doctor, I was going to work with Doctors Without Borders.
Okay. Gosh, from the beginning.
From the beginning, right?
Jeez,
and
yeah.
But doctor, because what do you do when you're an immigrant family from India, right? In the 1980s, your children to succeed need to become a doctor, lawyer, engineer, or investment banker. So, and my brother and I were good at math and science. And so the brother got put in the engineering stream and I got put in the, nudged to do the medicine stream. And
okay.
I honor and I'm grateful for the microbiology training. It gives me a certain logical brain.
Yeah.
It also helped me understand the science of sustainability really well, especially when I was helping lead SBTIs for one of my companies. But I really didn't like the practice of medicine. I worked for the chief of surgery at my university's hospital, and I just did not enjoy it. And at some point I thought, okay, let me go study something else. And it was with this mindset of still working, all over the world in refugee camps in extreme situations, which is why I pivoted to studying refugee studies at Oxford, which was incredible. It was my pivotal moment to truly shift into this career of impact and impact through business. How
does Oxford come on your radar? Was that to me that just seems like a long stretch, right? For me, the idea would never.
Yeah.
How was it for you? How does it come into play, and how do you go? You know what? That's an opportunity. That's a realistic opportunity to go for.
I looked for international development degrees. There weren't that many back in the day. Oxford had one of them. I think I applied to all three universities that had them. I won't name the other two because I did not choose them.
Yeah.
But I feel, again, very privileged because it was never a thing in my family that you don't apply to Oxford or you don't apply to Harvard. You just go apply to wherever you get in. And
okay.
But I want to say that my husband doesn't come from privilege, and he and I met at Oxford in the same class. And what people should know is that you don't need to come from that privilege. You just need to have the desire and the drive to go and apply. If you have the aptitude, apply and you can go. And there were people from all walks of life, right? Scholarship students whose parents had never been to college. My husband wasn't a scholarship student, but nobody in his family had gone to college. And he went on to get his PhD. So it's truly about, don't let your privilege stop you. Don't let it become your ego driver. But also you don't need to be from privilege. You just need to be curious, and you need to have courage to just apply.
So you apply, you get in, you go through that program. Then what? What's after that? Or what is that program like? And then where do you go from there?
It's magical. It's magical. And if you've ever been to Oxford, no matter where you come in from London or the airport, the bus comes into High Street, which looks like Harry Potter land because it's got all of these old colleges along the street, and you think it's a magical place. And it was truly a magical place.
Yeah.
And, I grew up being the smart kid and one of the smart kids in school. And you realize smart is a baseline, and everybody around you is so, so smart and stretching your brain.
Yes.
So I think pivotal in the sense that one, randomly ended up finding my life partner who shares my life purpose and does different things, but also centering myself on a life of impact, right? But one thing that Oxford does, which I think is really important, I'm trying to actually advocate for others to broaden, for them to even broaden in communicating what they're about, is you learn to learn. You learn to learn anything, because every piece of education, every course at Oxford is centered in 1,000-year-old philosophy, which is ethics that is grounded in language, logic, and rhetoric. So you learn about ethics, but you learn how to dissect it with language. You'll learn how to be logical about it and think logically about it and dissect it with logic. And then you'll learn how to discuss with each other with the foundation of rhetoric. So that's where it stretches your brain. And no matter what you need to go learn afterwards, we use those tools to continue to learn. And in this moment where AI is going to take away all of our need to memorize and learn rote, this becomes even more vital.
I've got more questions, but I want to kind of stick on this path. Let's go from after Oxford, then you've got these new skills, this new training, you've got your degrees. Where then? What's the first job out in the marketplace?
So the first job is in the slums of Mumbai. It's with the Canadian, now Global Affairs Canada, back then Canadian International Development Agency, sent a lot of young people with development degrees with less job experience to their NGO partners all over the world. Okay. I applied everywhere. I landed in Mumbai, which is 2 hours from where I'm from, and built a handicraft cooperative in the slums of Mumbai. And then after that, ended up in the headquarters of the Fairtrade movement at the bottom, doing trade auditing. And the Fairtrade movement was growing fast, and there was a lot of opportunity for young people to rise, and eventually ended up, within 2 years, being responsible for supporting 280,000 producers across Asia, doing training and capacity building a field level team, and then ended up also then building a coalition of these farmers and workers to co-own the movement. And then at the same time was doing things like building partnerships with the UN and working on very large accounts like large supermarkets and large brands and managing Fairtrade tea worldwide. So did that. And then afterwards, ended up moving to Canada, where I started working with Mondelez. In between, I had a really small stint again working with street kids, but truly I wanted to have big impact. And Mondelez came on board and asked me to join as their Canada sustainability lead, and then ended up moving me into the global procurement sustainability lead function, and had a great run there, collaborating within procurement and then cross-functionally and then across industry to really transform our strategy, drive impact, work on deforestation and palm and on human rights, set up our SBTs, and then moved to Nike, where worked on transforming their responsible supply chain function and then elevating their compliance function to become much more industry aligned, which they had already started that journey and helped them with that. And then started IllumineEarth.
Wow. While you were at Mondelez and Nike, I mean, those are such big corporations, such big organizations with, like you said, such a big global footprint, big opportunity for impact. Do you feel like there was really good progress being made there? And the potential for it is huge, obviously. But, from the outside, a lot of people will go like, oh, they're just so big, they're not really doing the work. I know otherwise. So give us a little insight into what it was like working for somebody that big.
I feel I really got lucky with both companies because they were both leaders in their field. And I think sustainability was embedded very deeply into both companies. I did some of that work at Mondelez and at Nike as well, but it was truly, throughout my time, I noticed that it was part of the culture of both companies, and it was just a given that they would do the work. And they would also be part of the industry efforts to move forward.
From that time, from working there within the organizations, now working with the leaders that you work, I guess, there are so many challenges and opportunities right now. I think we've touched on maybe both those topics. But what are some of the biggest challenges and opportunities? What's top of mind for you? And then I guess, what do you see leaders facing and how are they facing those opportunities? So let's start with what's top of mind for you in terms of challenges and opportunities.
So I think in general in the sector, right, the good thing is when I was at companies like Mondelez and Nike, there were groups of industry leaders who would come together and we'd always push the agenda forward. And it used to always be a handful in each industry. And we all knew each other and we all worked together. And we all wondered when the next ones would come along. And thanks to all the movement around CSRD, a lot more companies came on board. And the profession grew massively. So in a way, it was a dream. But because the focus remained so much on compliance and the headwinds around the economy came so quickly, that I still see a lot of new entrants or people who've actually even worked in large corporations or leading corporations and then moved into some of the newer entrants struggling a little bit. Not everybody. There are some people who've got lots of amazing things that they're doing and that they've used all of their experience to move the agenda, but there's a lot of challenge. And that's why one of the things that I, work on is this trifecta of personal flourishing, enterprise leadership, and industry leadership, because those are the challenges and opportunities, right? You've got, a lot of companies that have sustainability leaders that are a party of one, or they have tiny teams. There's a huge agenda, flat or shrinking budgets to assess, but not to implement. And a lot of passion. Every single sustainability leader I know really does this work because they believe in it. And it's really purpose aligned. And so they're worrying about this. They're worrying about their team. They're making sure that the last conversation is had. They're making sure that their PowerPoint presentations are perfect. And they're killing themselves. So the first thing we focus on is personal flourishing. Second piece is really around in some of the newer companies, because the wave around compliance came so fast that a lot of these people are relegated to that technical expert job. And one of the things that I truly was able to do is to get trained on how to become an enterprise leader, right? I got to learn slow at Mondelez and Nike to transform from just a sustainability expert to a sustainability leader who was also an enterprise leader. I got to be part of an M&A. I got to do supply chain work. I got to do operations work. It was just very interesting. And all these people don't get to do that because they're just drowning in compliance work. And so we work on these people, these leaders becoming enterprise leaders, speaking the enterprise language, elevating themselves, taking that opportunity to sit at the table and speak the language. And the third is really around industry leadership, because people's budgets are going away. They've never had the ability to learn how to not just show up at a conference, but also how to speak and how to have a point of view that is company and personally aligned, that we work on that. But those are the three challenges that I think are vital, and everybody should be working on that. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. Make sure you're not just seen as a sustainability expert, but as an enterprise leader, and make sure that you stay with the industry. You come to the events, you're talking, you're connecting, you're building community, because careers are long. And once people come inside sustainability, they don't like to leave.
Yeah.
So make sure you have a thriving community and you have the ability to move as you want.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point. I think with so much of that compliance and those technical roles, you do lose that opportunity for seeing the bigger picture. I know as in my role as I came up as a sustainability lead, it was because I came from the supply chain, purchasing, merchandising, working with factories, working with designers, like working throughout the entire thing. And that allows you to kind of go, oh, I understand the full picture and I know where I can push and pull and, where you can really have make a good impact and where you might not be able to as quickly as you'd like to.
Yeah, and not everything's your job, but people are going to try to make it your job, right? So
yes. Yeah, and I think for me, there was always this push that I really wanted to make sustainability be a part of everybody's role. And it was that idea of like, hey, I would really like to work myself out of a job here, because if everybody can take ownership of this, we need to do work in every area of our value chain, right? From raw material extraction to processing, manufacturing, retail, distribution, the offices, whatever, how we engage with our consumers. Every point needs specialists and people that understand this work. Do you think we're making good progress there, or do you still think we compartmentalize sustainability and responsibility and say, oh, well, that's handled by Karimah and her team, for example?
It depends on the company's maturity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It really, truly depends on the company's maturity. In some companies, it's not even a thing that, it's just so mature that the business thinks it's normal to have sustainability goals, that it's important to tie compensation to sustainability goals. You've got business leaders holding on to accountability for different sustainability areas in the company. And that's still that small segment of companies that are already mature. And then you have a big cliff where you still have this struggle between, is it sustainability's job, and is it sustainability's job to make it go away, versus is this truly an enterprise resilience play that everybody in the enterprise has to come up with? So I think it's a mixed bag right now.
Yeah, and you alluded to it, but I might press on you and ask, what percentage of companies do you think have that more mature outlook where they've embedded it, it's ingrained, all systems go, everybody's firing, understanding the goals, the process, and their responsibility? That's a tiny sliver, or
I don't know. My litmus test is, were they doing this before it became a requirement?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if they were forced to do it, chances are at a time like now, they're kind of going, oh, thank you, we don't have to do this anymore right now, or we're not getting the same pressure we were 4 years ago.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's take a quick break, Karimah. When I come back, I want to talk to you a little bit about, what drives you? What's been your driving force underneath the surface? I call that the underswell. What's been your underswell all this time that keeps you going, doing this work? What keeps you in the game? And then I want to get some advice from you for young career builders who are either earlier in their journeys or they're looking to make a shift into this space. So hang tight. We'll come right back and I'll ask you those questions. Talking with professionals like my guest today is always inspiring, and a reminder that more of us need foundational sustainability knowledge so we can help our brands and companies continue to grow and profit in the most sustainable way. What do you think? Does your team have the confidence and competence to work in and contribute to this exciting space? I often find that the answer is, well, not yet. That's why, after more than a decade deep in the sustainability profession, I developed a set of courses and trainings to do just that. The School of Understanding is a self-paced online sustainability course made for professionals and brands who want to catch up and keep up with the expectations of today's marketplace. If you're not fluent in the language of sustainability yet, you're falling behind. So let's fix that. Enroll yourself or your team now and get caught up in the exciting opportunities that are being created in sustainable and profitable business. Well, Karimah, like I said, I call this show The Underswell because I really believe that under the surface, something is driving each of us. It's different for all of us. So I always like to ask, what is your underswell? What keeps you going?
I think it's the people. It's every single person I hold in my mind and heart, and their faces that I see, who couldn't reach their potential for whatever reason, right? Either it was our old housekeeper who had all the folk remedies, and if you would have put her in a lab and given her the education, maybe she could have found the cure for cancer. Or young boys who work on Dandora Garbage Dump, which is Nairobi's largest garbage dump, who was so entrepreneurial and so resilient, who are raising pigs and collecting plastic bottles. What if they had the opportunity to learn, go to business school, do a startup? Would they create something that was beautiful, that was incredible? And it's also the people who have a lot of privilege and a lot of opportunity who keep themselves from unleashing their full potential. So that's always what drives me, right? So how can we unlock everybody's full potential? Because I truly believe that human beings, as I said, have really good intentions. I believe we really want to do good and help each other out. And the ability to unlock that potential and to give people permission to do what they really, really want to do is what drives me. That seems like a big lift, a heavy burden to have, right? To try to make that, influence that many
people, how do you do that at scale? Or do you just sort of think one by one, each person by each person?
I think both, right? I always say systems change doesn't happen in a magical big diagram. It happens when a few believers come together and move forward. I think it's because I've seen the change happen within one generation, and I've seen people lift themselves up, and I know it's possible. So it's everybody I've seen unlock, right? That business president saying, I want to go and get a sustainability certificate, or the young person that I know that in my family's foundation in India who moved to Canada and became a banker, who came from a very vulnerable background. It's when I was standing in the mountains of Aceh, and 2 years after we began working there, saw that 100 farmers came together and they were negotiating hard with their exporters, because my team was there and had been doing the training and capacity building on the ground to support them to do that. It was when we built the coalition of 280,000 farmers, because there were about 10 or 12 leaders who are now friends, lifetime friends, who came together every couple of months, and we made sure that we built the right governance and we built the right mechanisms to do that over 5 years. It was when a bunch of us across the industry saw that there was an opportunity to come together and do common mapping and monitoring of the entire palm oil supply chain, and we did that within 2 years. And we created a dent, right? Within a couple of years, we'd have deforestation in palm. To see that that's possible, right? And it doesn't take a lot of people. The deforestation piece, I think, was 3 companies coming together, me with 2 other companies, and me representing my company with 2 other people representing their companies, and then calling a meeting with 20 other people, and then 48 companies come on board, and then the entire industry comes on board. I think what we're missing right now is this kind of thought, right? We're going compliance, my company, right? We need to figure out how do we shift that towards impact together. Yeah. And I know it's possible. And by the way, I may just be a ridiculous optimist, but I won't stop being one.
No, well, there's that. I think that's what keeps us going. But I also, what you just outlined, though, it's like you're not just working in ideals. Like you've seen it happen, you've seen it work, you've seen it come together. I love that idea of impacting one person, which can impact a department, which can impact a company. A company can change an industry. Industries change the world, right? And they start to come together. So it's that ripple effect that you have. It can really make a big difference. And I just love that you have seen it in action. You know it works. And that's probably what keeps you doing it over and over again, because you're like, we did it. I've done it before. We can replicate this over and over.
It absolutely works, right? The deforestation example I gave, I said but truly underneath it was a team of people who said, yes, let's do this, right?
Right.
And I thought, okay, I asked for something really crazy and they said yes, and it was good. So
sometimes you just got to ask. Sometimes you just have to apply, like at Oxford, right? You just got to go for it. I know you've mentioned this, as you've been talking, but I know you're a community builder. You're, kind of always an advocate for others, as you've mentioned. You're involved with the group Salute, South Asian Leaders Unite to Empower. But maybe tell us a little bit about how you got involved there, and talk to me about the importance of groups and communities like this.
Yeah, and so I've said this very nicely, right? When I was 10, I moved from India to the US, and I went back to India. And even when I was at Fairtrade, I went to India a lot. But there was this moment when I was growing up where I didn't want to be Indian because it wasn't popular to be Indian.
Yeah.
And I just ceded that part of my identity. I didn't want it. And I truly feel like whatever you believe in, the universe just kept reminding me who I am. That's why a lot of the work that I do now with leaders is about going back into your identity and choosing the identity that you want. So, having gone back to India for the internship, having gone back to India lots during Fairtrade, and then during my time at Mondelez, I built a new relationship. My husband calls it an emancipated relationship with India. And until recently, I hadn't re-engaged with a lot of the South Asian diaspora groups. Neha Singh, who is the co-founder of Salute, is somebody I found. This was an interesting group. I just thought, let me go and engage. And I found that she's created an environment and a group that is very inclusive of all definitions of South Asian heritage, whether it's mine, somebody who feels fully South Asian and came to the US yesterday, or somebody who has a completely different definition of what it is to be South Asian heritage. And it's just a generative, beautiful community where we just reach out to each other. We ask for support. We celebrate each other because there's a lot of entrepreneurship and there's a lot of business leadership within the community. There's a woman who started a toy business for children named Akriti, and she asked for help with a supply chain issue in a company. And, I happened to have a friend in that company, and I just connected her. And it's as simple as that. And I needed some help, and somebody just connected me to support. And it's very nice. And I think communities are so vital right now. Loneliness is an epidemic.
Yeah.
Mental health is in part related to that. Obviously, it's a more complex issue. And I do believe that we need to be part of different communities that fill us up. I run my own community, the IllumineEarth ecosystem, for the leaders I serve. I always tell people who are in it, please go be part of other communities that fill you up as well. I think there's a need and an opportunity to engage wherever you find is meaningful for you. And Salute's been that space for me, and I thank them for it.
Oh, I love that. Well, it's the idea of, engaging, coming together, communing, connecting, networking, helping each other. The theme here seems to be people, humans, connecting, helping each other, right, and helping us all move forward to live a good life.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, let me move into the advice stage here from you, Karimah, because I'm sure just based on what you've built, you've got a lot. But, we mentioned that you're an Oxford grad. That's a big deal, noting that it's consistently ranked as one of the, if not the best universities in the world. I mean, sometimes you must look and just go, yeah, that's right. I got that. I did that. It's one of the oldest universities in the world as well, right? Do you ever look back on it and just kind of go, wow?
I did, because I went to Oxford this last summer, and it was 26 years after I visited the first time to decide whether I would go there or to a different university. Mm-hmm. And it is a very awe-inspiring place. And I saw my tutors, and I met a leading philosopher, and just to be in this soup of tradition and grandeur and intellectual stimulation was incredible. I don't think I think about it as an ego issue. I just think about it as a normal thing. I mean, if the person in your house, if your husband went to Oxford and all of your grad school friends went to Oxford, you just think it's normal.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, but I also, people always say, oh, that. And I said, but I also don't want to discount the University of Washington, right? One of my genetics professors was Mary Clara King. She's a woman who discovered the breast cancer genes. And she was one of the people who gave me 15 minutes of her time when I was making that pivotal decision about whether I stay in science or move to social science. I had the most magical learning, both in microbiology, but also in women's studies and anthropology and English. And so I feel like it's probably, go to a great university. Go to the best university you can go to. But don't just go. Don't just go and get that degree that ticks the box. I've got so many friends, not as much as in Oxford because you go to Oxford intentionally, but so many who went to the UW because it's a state school, you get a good degree, it's a great deal, and they just ticks the boxes, and they had no joy in learning. And you know what? The very interesting sounding English course costs you as much as English 101 does. And English 101 is maybe a step above what you learned in high school, and that very interesting course. I took a course named Order, Disorder, and the Construction of Urban Life. And I learned something completely different.
You were exposed to something new.
Yeah, it's just do things that stretch your brain a lot and that challenge you in a new way whenever you learn.
Well, you're answering a question that I didn't even ask that I was going to. I was trying to kind of put this into words, but it's like, how important then was your whole college experience, both of those, UW and Oxford, for your career and as who you are today? How did it help create who you are and how you work today? Just the overall experience. And before you answer, I ask because I think there are a lot of young people who are second guessing college these days. The cost. Do I really need it? Can't I just learn that online? I can watch videos, AI, etc. People are like, I don't know. I'm not sure if it's right for me anymore.
Yeah. And I don't think
you?
college is right for everybody, right? I lived in Europe for a decade, and people are doing just fine with vocational training, etc.
Yeah.
And you can learn different things, and things like plumbing and electrician. These professions are coming up. People can think about different things, but I think the trade-off isn't between college and not college. The trade-off is, do you want to actually learn something that fills you up and continue to learn lifelong? And what role does college play? I kind of feel like my learning began in this preschool childhood, going to tiny villages and sitting in huts and eating with human beings and then being stretched in my thinking by my family. I think going to elementary school in India stretches your thinking and challenges you in a different way. And then moving completely across the 7 seas to the US to do middle school on one coast and then doing high school on the other coast. Everything is both a life lesson and an education, right?
Yeah.
But if we think about things in terms of learning to learn and lifelong learning, what is going to get you there? Is it just a degree that's going to help you absorb as much content as possible to get a degree that will maybe last you 5 years? Or are you actually doing something from the perspective of the love of learning?
Yeah, a lifetime of learning. I love that. That's a great way to put it. You've worked, in so many different, you've worked and lived in so many different parts of the world and doing so many different things. What, and you're helping, you mentioned Gen Z professionals. What do young people these days you think need to know about the workspace, especially maybe this industry that we're in, that you're working in? What set of skills do they need to have? What do you see for them right now?
I think this being purpose aligned is really important, right? Know why you're here, what you love, what you want. I think what I also actually tell a lot of people, and I don't do this because I'm not a financial expert, but I tell people to work on their money mindset, because we've got either a fear of money or a strange codependence on it, right?
Yeah.
Where people just say, earning money is evil, or it's, I earn something, but I don't know what to do with it. I'm going to leave it in the bank, and I don't know how I'm going to be independent and do whatever I want to do. And the other piece is this codependency. Like, I can't tell you how many people I know who've got $10 million in the bank who are afraid to take a risk. Right? Yeah. So money is a tool. Learn how to use the tool for your ends.
Yeah.
And I think also this, learn how to work with each other, learn how to communicate with each other. I think that's becoming a really big issue. But I also want us to learn from Gen Z. I want us to unlearn some of our limiting beliefs. I spent a lot of time just learning and remembering the unreasonableness and the untaintedness of this generation, right? Especially because I don't work with the entire Gen Z population. I work with the people who are in the climate and nature space. And they are so unreasonable, so untainted, just going there. And sometimes I just say, I think I want to go to this space. And I have to think about whether I do it or not. And they say, here's a contact, go talk to them. That's what you and I would have done when we were 24 years old. Why are we overthinking it?
Yeah.
So...
Well, you've touched on something you're learning from them. That's a really good takeaway. I guess, what were some of the biggest lessons you've learned from all of this so far? Do you ever look back and just kind of think, whether it was from the mistakes we've made or the failures, what have you learned along the way?
I thought I was fearless, right? I went and worked in the slums of Mumbai, and I worked in the slums of Nairobi and Addis and Freetown, Sierra Leone, and I've gone to Aceh right after the war and built my entire program there, and gone to different countries and different places completely off the beaten track, sometimes not even knowing how I'd get to the next place, not having any transport. landing in countries where right as I landed, a bomb went off, right?
Oof.
Great. I'm still realizing that there's more fearlessness to be had. I am now becoming the boldest, most fearless version of myself.
How
Because
so?
there's that ability to go out into different places and do things,
Yeah.
but there's also conforming a little bit so that you can go inside a large movement or a large organization and work with everybody and move along. And that's important, and I honor that. But some of these limiting beliefs, right, around if you've worked in a large movement, you don't ask to go to a conference just outright as an individual. You just have to figure out making sure that everybody's aligned, making sure that you've got this positioning, and now I just go and ask, right? And that's one very small example, I think, just in terms of, how my writings evolve, how my strategies evolve, how engaging with people has evolved, where I'm talking has evolved as well. And it continues to unfurl and make me and my boldest self. I think it's yet to come.
I love that. And that just comes with time, right? I mean, you can't rewind and force this feeling on your younger self. Is that fair to say?
No, I think it comes with time for some, and some are just born this way or they stay this way, right? Like the young activists in Gen Z that I work with, they are this way already. And I think maybe we were, and at some point we just said, okay, the best way to do this work is in-house, and we were able to make a big impact. Yeah, I think it just differs, right? I mean, if you look at Mrs. Obama in her 60s, she is her boldest self.
Yeah.
So there's no age, I think.
Okay. Well, I love that there's more to come. There's great things in store for us from you. Well, let's wrap this up with just a couple last things here, if you would. 3 things to keep in mind for people who are earlier in their journey looking to build a career like yours. What do you want people to focus on as they come up and build their careers?
I think, first of all, that money mindset is really important.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Second of all, be purpose-led. And third is know that the world needs you right now. Mm-hmm. Whatever you have to give, it needs you right now. It doesn't need you tomorrow. And so it's your time to lead.
Yeah, and the world needs you as you are.
Right? As you are.
Who you are. Yeah.
You're just unapologetically yourself. And again, as I say to Gen Z, stay unreasonable, stay untainted. Does not mean stay entitled. It means stay unreasonable, stay untainted.
That was great. You got some great quote lines here that I'm going to quote you on and put in the show notes. Karimah, what's on the horizon for you? Anything exciting that you're working on that we should keep an eye out for as we
Nothing I can share in detail, but more around the creation and imagination piece.
Okay. Nice. Oh, yeah, all right. And we'll leave it at that. Well, you'll leave it to us to imagine what's coming next. Well, I'd like to give this last minute here to you. It's an open mic session where I hand over the mic for anything else you want to cover. Shout outs, call outs, recommendations, apologies, any shameless plugs, etc., etc. The mic is yours to close us out here, Karimah.
So I've been using this quote from Einstein a lot lately, and I think it's apt right now for all of us. He said, "Imagine is more important than knowledge. For knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the entire world, stimulating progress, giving birth to evolution." And we're in this moment, right? We just talked about how if you're just amassing knowledge and you're going to university or you're trying to figure out how to use your knowledge forever, AI will do that for you. Mm-hmm. Now is the time to imagine. And what I do a lot is help leaders reimagine how they lead so they flourish and they lead a flourishing world. So an invitation to come work together.
I love that. Great words to leave us with, Karimah. Thank you so much. I'm gonna start imagining more this weekend for that very reason. That's a great way. So thank you for sharing those insights with us and your story, and thanks for all the advice. Anything else that we need to wrap with?
I think we're good. This has been a very nourishing conversation, so thank you.
Thank you. Nourishing for me as well, and I appreciate you being here, and we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Karimah. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the show. If you like what you heard, be sure to check back weekly, subscribe to the show, and if you want to be featured on the show, come hit us up at theunderswell.com. We'd love to hear from you.